Hello, thank you for joining the call today. So excited. First week of August, always having a new month is a great time to just kind of like reevaluate. How did last month go? What are my goals for this month? What do I want to focus on and prioritize for the month ahead? I think August is just kind of the end of summer and anticipating a different schedule upcoming, especially those that maybe have kids in school, even just with the seasons changing ahead. I think in August, I start to think about fall. It's so hot still in Utah, but I just like start to get excited for fall routine. And yeah, so I love doing these calls, especially at the beginning of a new month, because you can think about all the days ahead and what you want to focus on and prioritize. And it's just a good opportunity to reflect. So you guys did ask some great questions today. So we're going to just dive into those. But then as always, if you guys have more questions on the call, we'll answer those. Oh, and I think let's start the call with the winner today for the Strong Summer Challenge. So this week's winner is based on the week 1 points. And let me pull it up here and add people too. So we will be giving away a strategy call with a coach on our team for this week, which is for those of you that haven't done a strategy call. This is a great opportunity to just meet one-on-one with a coach on our team and have just an hour where you can talk through your goals, talk through what you've been doing. We will give you appropriate macro ratios, calories, protein, carbs, and fats for your goals, and we'll also help you strategize. So what would be optimal for you from a training standpoint, from a lifestyle standpoint, on the diet side, things that maybe holes we might see in what you're currently doing and how you can optimize. So it's like one-on-one coaching, but not ongoing. You just get to have access to one of us for an hour. And actually I was going to pair the winner with a coach, but as I'm talking, I'm thinking I will let the winner maybe choose based on who has availability, who they want to do their strategy call with. So that will be fun for them to get to do that. And so the cool thing about a strategy call also is that it's just totally catered to you and where you're currently at. So maybe if you aren't tracking macros, we can give you suggestions. If you're an athlete, we can give you suggestions. So it just really comes down to your goals, and we'll meet you where you're at and give you ideas. And for those of you that don't win, remember, everyone has 20% off that is doing the Strong Summer Challenge. You got an email from me with a coupon code for any consultation. So whether that's a macro consult or a strategy call. So that is something you can just purchase on the website under consultations and use that coupon code and sign up with whoever has availability for those that don't win this one. We wanted to provide that too. So the winner for the strategy call, the one-on-one strategy call, is Kelly Vilwalk. And I think she might be on the call. So I just see the name Kelly, so I don't know for sure, but congrats to Kelly for winning the strategy call. I will shoot you a message and you can choose who you want to set up that call with. So congrats, super excited about that. And we'll move on to questions. Also for the challenge, hopefully week 2 is going well. Hopefully for those of you that are doing subscription programming, you're kind of getting into a groove now and able to really just push more intensity and weight, and just feel like you can bring more focus to your training this week. I think week 1 is always just acclimating to the lifting, getting used to maybe new exercises, figuring out kind of what your threshold is for your RPE. And then week 2, I feel like I can really start to move through just with a better flow and better intensity. So hopefully you're feeling that this week, and excited to see everyone progress in the coming weeks. Okay, so answering questions. I'm choosing to do a 6-month calorie surplus. How do I get my mindset right when clothes are tighter and I feel annoyed with tracking and all the eating? So first of all, I love that you're committing to a 6-month surplus and not like a 3-month or a 6-week, because it takes some time to build muscle. And if you're just like coming out of it really quickly and going right into a fat loss phase, likely you haven't put on any muscle. But some things, and I think everyone pitch in on this. We've all, I don't, there's pros and cons, right? To having like a building stage and a cutting stage, or just like trying to do them simultaneously. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. But I think if you really want to prioritize building muscle, I think having a focused period of time where you do that is going to be really beneficial. Some things that can help. Mindset, obviously, is going to be huge. Like, you are going to likely be putting on some body fat as you are pursuing the goal to build lean tissue. Some things that can help with like moving the needle more towards lean tissue and less towards body fat are going to be to really make sure you're getting plenty of protein. I would say 1.1 gram per pound of body, or per just how much you weigh. Like definitely going on the higher end of protein and prioritizing that, making sure if you aren't supplementing with creatine, I would definitely do that. And then beyond that, your food intake, like start small with your surplus. So what is maintenance for you? Just maybe start like 150, 200 calories above that and see how you feel. You should feel more energized in your workouts. You should feel better recovery. You should feel better sleep. You should feel like you should just be able to push harder, and then track your progress in your lifts, track your progress in your measurements and photos. If you're noticing growth happening, ideally we want growth happening everywhere, but kind of minimizing the growth on your waist. So if you're noticing that like waist is growing at a higher rate than glutes, legs, arms, then I would probably cut down a little bit on that surplus and just see if you can manage that growth a little bit better. I think the best way to really track is to get a DEXA scan, so you can assess, like, of the 5 pounds I've put on, how much of that is lean tissue, how much of that is body fat. But also tracking the scale can be helpful too. So I wouldn't want to put on more than a pound a week in a surplus, but I would say sitting closer to that, like half pound to a pound, is probably going to be more of the sweet spot for just ensuring you're kind of minimizing the body fat gains as well. And then tracking and eating, like simplify. Where can you simplify? Can you eat the same thing for breakfast every morning? And then maybe like the same kind of template for lunch, whether that's like protein, carb, fats, in the form of you just have leftovers from dinner, grilled meat, potatoes, rice, whatever it is, and then getting in fats. That's also going to be a good way to really strategize on, so you don't feel like you're always eating. Like, if you have been lower calories, swapping a lot of those low calorie, high volume foods for high calorie, low volume foods. So instead of half your plate in vegetables, maybe do a quarter of your plate in vegetables and do rice, because that's going to be easier. Like, same thing. I'm not often in a surplus, but like my husband is always pursuing building muscle, and he eats at Chipotle regularly. So here's like a simple example of that, right? Double chicken bowl, instead of beans and rice, he just opts for no beans and doubles his rice, because it's so much easier to eat another serving of rice than it is to eat more beans. When you're trying to add in that much food, beans are just going to be lower calorie. Where for me, I opt for usually no rice and do beans. So I'm trying to get more volume out of my meal. So just finding ways, like if you are eating anything low fat, go move to a full fat version of any dairy, right? Liquid calories are also going to be your best friend when you're trying to add calories without adding too much volume. Pack in like a 600 calorie protein shake, you'll be able to drink that really quickly, and it's not going to fill you up as much as a 600 calorie meal would, right? Of where you're eating all of that in one sitting. So lots of just like random thoughts there, but hopefully some of that helps. Do you guys have anything to add there?
I was just thinking that Autumn must have a lot of great ideas
Yeah.
for food.
Yeah. So I went into a 6-month surplus, similar last year.
Yeah.
I kind of had the mindset that Henrietta, we were just talking about, just send it. I mean, I just was like, just bring it. I'm down for it. But it did take a couple of weeks for me to adapt to the higher calories.
Yeah.
And you really have to look at it like, okay, I'm going to spend some time building my template for the day, because it does kind of become a job to make sure you're eating the appropriate amount of food. So you do have to spend some time, a couple of weeks, just kind of getting used to that template, knowing what foods work good where. But the easy digestible carbohydrates are the best. Bagels in the morning, English muffins in the morning, rice is going to be a game changer. And just finding the niche for your schedule to help you get your calories is going to be beneficial. But you will notice like, oh my goodness, I am putting on mass, not necessarily a bunch of body fat, but your body will grow, and that's really ideally what you want it to do. And you just have to have that mindset going in. But I will tell you, nothing has changed the shape of my body more than going into a surplus did. So it was kind of scary at first, and then a pain towards the end of my 6 months. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm ready to eat, an appropriate amount of food. So you'll be ready by the time 6 months is over, but you'll be so glad you did. Like everybody needs to spend some time in a surplus, a higher end of your maintenance, more, I guess is a good way to say it. But, and then just make sure your training matches it appropriately. Like, if your volume doesn't match, it's not gonna, you'll put more fat on than muscle. So you want to make sure you're finding a good balance with that.
For sure on the training. And then, darn it.
And then when you said changed, Autumn, you mean in a positive way, right?
Yeah. It changed. And I mean, I put more muscle on, and I'm almost 43 years old. So I really had to drive my calories up higher to work on putting the mass on, and it changed dramatically, to me at least. I mean, I had people like, are you in a deficit? Are you cutting? And I'm like, no, just because I put so much muscle on. But it did take a little bit of work at first, and it took some time for me to get used to. And I had really good weeks and I had really bad weeks. But knowing a template and knowing what foods work where is the most important, because if not, you won't get those calories in appropriately, and then it'll kind of be unbalanced through the week. So just take a step back and look at your day, and just have about the same amount of foods and the same foods that you can eat. But the easier, starchier carbohydrates that are easy digesting are going to be the best.
Yes. And what I was going to say is, at first you're eating more carbs. So you are going to feel like your muscles are going to fill with glycogen. So just knowing like you're going to be pulling in a lot more water at first. So that is going to feel a little uncomfortable if you're not used to that. And
so the scale will jump at first too. So you're going
because of that.
That dramatic jump ish, 3 to 4 pounds. And then it's about a quarter to a half a pound, probably a week that you'll maintain. So don't panic at first, but just remember your goal. Just remember your ending goal on those moments that you're like, what am I doing? I'm just, what am I doing? I'm eating all this food. I'm putting on this mass, and you just have to know why you're doing it. And
buy a pair of jeans that's a little bit bigger, because just remember that you look just as sexy.
Embrace the bulk.
10 pounds heavier. Embrace it. I would say that's like a big thing too, is get clothes that fit you in that process, so you don't feel like stressed, just 1 or 2 things. And then no, it's not forever. Like you're building, and then once you do lose that body fat, that's where that transformation is going to happen. Where for most women, it's not going to happen if they start with a cut. So know that too. And then
I'm thinking like for that person, if that person is not working if that person that asked that question is not working with anyone at all, like having a strategy call with someone on the team would be a great idea, just to know also that you are on the right space with like calories, so you're not overdoing it with calories, and just have someone to,
Yes, for
definitely
sure.
recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you can work with a coach, that's going to be really beneficial in like weekly
Yeah,
monitoring and making
of course, even
adjustments
better.
too.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, two questions that kind of go together. What should you do if you max out before you complete all your reps? So let's say it's 4 sets of 12 and your first set you hit 8 and that's it. That's your last rep. So I mean, and it depends, right? If it's the first set and you're not getting the full reps, like definitely drop down on weight so that you are hitting them. So if let's say I'm supposed to do 4 sets of 12, my first set I hit 9 reps and I have 30-pound dumbbells, I'm dropping to like 20 pounds for the next set, and then seeing how I feel, and then I might adjust from there. If it's your last set, let's say you hit 12, 12, 12, your last set you hit 10, I just would make a note of it and just, okay, next time I'm either going to go a little lighter on that last set, or I'm going to be close and I'm going to hope for I get 11. And then maybe that next week I'll get 12. It just kind of depends for me. If I'm close, if I'm within 2 reps on that last set, I'll probably just call it good and make a note of it and just see how I'm feeling the next week. If I'm more than 2 reps off, then I'm going to lower that weight for sure. And if it's happening in like the first or second set, definitely go down quite a bit because you're going to fatigue even more as each set goes on. So just assume it's going to be harder to lift that same weight in the 3rd and 4th set for sure. So yes, just don't stress out though. Just like, if you max out before you hit the reps, just make an adjustment and come down and wait and move forward. You don't need to like redo anything. And then thoughts on doing the 30 minutes more regularly than 60-minute workouts, still prioritizing RPE, but often might not have time to fit in the 60-minute workouts. Guys, that's what they're there for. 30-minute workouts is for that reason. If you don't have time for 60, do the 30. We have so many people that are just completely transforming their bodies at 30-minute workouts. So just know, I love that, and you know what you can even do too, if you feel like maybe you've got 45 minutes, do the 60-minute and just cut down. Instead of 4 sets, do 3. In fact, that's exactly what I did this last week. I looked at the 60-minute programming and just based on the exercise, I dropped it from 4 to 2 sets or 4 to 3 sets. I knew how much time I had. And I made those adjustments based on like what I felt like I needed more volume of, or I could sacrifice a little bit of volume. So just know that the 30-minute one, we've thought that through for you. But if you have more than 30 minutes, but not quite 60, or you're kind of just seeing how you feel, then do the 60 and just cut down as needed. But just know that 30 minutes, I mean, it's still a good amount of volume, and you're definitely going to see progress if you're really prioritizing that RPE. So same with 15. So it doesn't have to be 60. That's why I put optional on a lot of workouts too, like on the cardio and the sprints and the glutes day. The week is designed so you can kind of pick and choose as needed. Don't ever feel like you have to do everything. In fact, I would say most people are not going to benefit by doing 5 days of lifting and all the cardio. That's a lot of volume. So I would rather you were getting an appropriate amount of volume for your goals. And if that means the 30, so you can get in some cardio and have a good balance, then that's probably going to be the best thing for you. Recovery is really important, and overtraining you're not going to be building as easily if you are overtrained and under recovered. So yeah.
Like also, if you're doing the 60 and never really having time for it, over time you're probably not going to feel super excited about the program, because you're like in a mindset where like, oh, I don't really, and it's like it becomes a stressful thing. So just, I think that if you're thinking longevity with like keeping to the program and something at all, just doing the 30 and be happy if you're able to get it. Yeah, I feel like that's probably a better idea, both for your body and mind.
I love that. Yes. Don't compare. Okay. If people are on the 60, like, don't worry about that. Think about like, what can I handle today? Choose that, mark it off, and like, be so proud of yourself, because the program I'm doing it myself too. And it's a good amount of volume. And so just trust that you are doing a fantastic job if you are doing that lifting. I mean, it's very it's challenging. So you will benefit. Don't compare, focus on what you can handle and be proud of what you're doing.
And I feel like also like it's not like you have to choose. I'm either doing 60 the whole week or I'm doing 30,
Right.
or like you can do 60 one day, 30 another day. Then maybe there's a day where you do 15. Like so you don't have to choose like from
Yes.
week to week, or
Yes.
just to have that set as well.
And that's why I wrote it the way that I did, so that you could go back and forth as needed. It's going to be very similar. We're just cutting down sets. So yes. And okay, can you talk about rep counts and volume versus strength? When trying to lose body fat and gain muscle, what sort of periodization and rest periods work best? How do you continue to lose body fat without sacrificing lean body mass? So our programming is designed to build muscle. Whether you are also losing body fat is going to depend on your diet. And then also whether you can build muscle and lose body fat simultaneously is going to come down to diet mostly too, and recovery. Like, are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting enough recovery? Are you pushing RPE? The rep range for hypertrophy is going to recent studies are showing that it really isn't a matter of that 9 to 12 reps is building muscle. When you go beyond that, it's muscle endurance. When you go below that, it's strength. To some extent, yes, but we're finding now that whether it's 8 reps, 9 reps, or 30 reps, going near failure is what is going to cause hypertrophy, cause your muscles to grow. So whether if you really do want to prioritize strength, then yes, going on that lower rep range is going to prioritize that. But in this case, I think this person is worried about not building muscle. So I would say just focus on your RPE, and that's going to dictate growth. And then also losing body fat and building muscle at the same time is hard to do. So keep that in mind. And for most people, that's going to look like a slight calorie deficit, or even maybe actually, I would say starting at maintenance, really making sure you're getting plenty of protein, supplementing with creatine, doing what you can to put yourself in an anabolic state, knowing that your calorie intake isn't you're not in a surplus to build. So I would start at maintenance calories and just assess how are clothes fitting, how are your workouts, are you able to lift more each week, is waist maintaining but other measurements are getting bigger, or that's kind of a good indicator that probably body fat's coming down or at least maintaining while you're building muscle. Trying to lose body fat and build muscle at the same time is just going to be a lot more delicate of a process. And so I would for sure make sure that you are able to track your food meticulously before you pursue that goal, and that training is really dialed in. And then you'll want to assess week to week, looking at measurements and photos. Those are going to be the biggest indicators of progress. Also training progress, are you lifting more week over week? That's a good way to kind of know if you are at least increasing strength, which is going to correlate to an increase in building lean tissue. And a DEXA scan too. I think I'm just making sure I answered this all of the way. How do you continue to lose body fat without sacrificing lean body mass? So at some point you will sacrifice lean body mass, because you'll plateau with fat loss and you'll need to push calories lower, and you're just not going to have the same intensity with your lifting when you're underfed. So at some point you'll go from building muscle, losing body fat deeper into that deficit in order to continue losing body fat when you plateau. And it will more likely be continued fat loss and maintaining muscle. And then depending how much lower, hopefully you don't need to go any lower. But I'm just thinking bodybuilding, right? If you're getting at extreme levels of body fat, then it will likely, as you lose body fat, you will also lose lean tissue, and you just want to minimize that as much as possible. For most, you should be able to lose body fat and build muscle at maintenance, or like the low end of maintenance, while really making sure you're getting plenty of protein, plenty of recovery, and pushing your training hard, and programming is appropriate to build muscle. So hopefully that kind of helps answer that. Do you guys have anything to add there?
No, but I was just thinking like building muscle and becoming stronger isn't necessarily like, or feeling stronger isn't necessarily the same thing. Is that something, do you have something
so
to
building,
about that?
increasing in strength is most often going to correlate to building muscle, but not always. Like I have a client who is a strongman athlete, and so that's something that we've been working on. Strength is going up because we are pushing with heavier weights, but we want to really prioritize hypertrophy. So then we have to make sure we're getting enough volume to build lean tissue, and then also higher on the rep ranges and possibly sets to make sure that we're increasing building lean tissue too. So it's a balance there, but also the rep count is kind of fluid. I would say in order to put on lean tissue, likely you do need to be over that, 8 to 10, kind of in that 8 to 10 rep range would be kind of the sweet spot that you want to be at, that or above, to build lean tissue. We're below that in like the 3 to 6 rep range is very, is where we're going to be mostly building strength. You can do both at many rep ranges. So there's definitely an overlap, unlike in like the 90s where it was like, okay, reps 3 to 7, 3 to 6 is strength, reps 7, 8 to 12 is hypertrophy, and then 12 to 20 is muscle endurance. That's just not really the case. And I think, and maybe I'm wrong here, I feel like CrossFit proved that in many ways for, just seeing people lift completely different than they were in the past, and seeing a significant amount of muscle increase. The downside in my mind to CrossFit is it's very random, right? So it depends, you're definitely going to be building muscle as you're adding more weight and increasing in weight through your workouts. But it all comes down to the programming on where you build that muscle, how much muscle you're building. And so I do, that is the priority with the Hungry Fitness programming. And when we train clients that want to build lean tissue, is we're going to target that growth where you want it. HF Physique is pretty well rounded, obviously with the bias towards glutes and shoulders, just more biased towards like where women generally want to build muscle. But the goal is to provide the stimulus and get enough of that intensity and volume to grow. But then also make sure you're eating enough to support that, which is tricky when you want to see fat loss. I think adding in cardio is going to be really helpful on the fat loss side of things too. But making sure the intensity isn't too high, because then that's going to impact building muscle. So walking, zone 2, if you want to continue to like move the needle to more towards fat loss, those would be great pieces you could add. Kind of moving all those puzzle pieces is where you're going to find success. And you got to that's where regularly, like each week, looking at progress and then assessing, okay, we need more stimulus here. How can we add that in through food or through training or through recovery modalities? And that's where working with a coach would be really helpful, or just like a strategy call maybe midway through if you are stalled out on progress. And okay, we had 2 more questions, but they're on the same topic. So I think I'm going to save it for next week so we can really go in depth on them. They're on light exposure and red light therapy. So we will talk about those next week, because those are things we are very excited about on this team for sure. So many benefits, but I would say in the meantime, get outside in the morning, get outside midday, get outside in the evening, and just notice the difference you'll feel in your body and your mind. We also got, I will email you the link today. Okay. So we also, just questions on those. So we'll talk more about those next time. In the meantime, someone did ask if there were any sources. David Herrera is awesome. He's posting a lot of things. His is the Solar Athlete, right? Is that his Instagram? He also does all of our blood work consults. He just posted a link today on a YouTube podcast, the episode that he did on sunlight, sunscreen, I haven't listened to it yet, but I hear him talk all the time and I always am learning from him on that. Also, Huberman Lab posts a lot on studies. So you could look him up and read just any of the benefits on his Instagram. He also has podcasts. So that would be a great source as well on light exposure and benefits. So we'll talk more about that next week, but congrats on the winner for the week 1. I'll be sending out the links on Sunday for week 2. And just all of you guys are doing amazing. It's so fun to read all your wins that you guys have regularly. And we're just so grateful to have this community. So thank you for joining the call, and we'll be talking next week. Have a good first week of August.